Alrighty guys, welcome to the deep dive of the user interface. I'm going to go through in detail each different part of the user interface. I'm pretty much going to tell you what every single button does, at least every button that I use on a regular basis. Let's just go ahead and open up let's go the commercial sample project this time. See how spicy that is. So you'll notice that I'm using Revit LT. The reason for this is I'm actually paying for this license out of my own pocket to make these videos, because these videos are totally separate to my senior design and drafting position at Wink & Co. As a consequence of using LT, there's a few less buttons than in the full version of Revit. In LT, there's still, in the ribbon up here, between architecture and modify and these little buttons up here, there's about 300 buttons. So I really can empathize if you're like looking at the user interface thinking like there's just so much, because there's a lot. So I'll do my best to just go through it all quite thoroughly. So if you watch these videos from all the way through, you should have a fair idea of what the program does. So let's go to a floor plan so we can kind of get the full use of these buttons. All right. One red hot tip that I'll give you as well. If you're ever wondering what something does, or any of these things do, hold your mouse over it for, a couple of seconds, and it'll give you a bit more information and a little bit of a diagram as to what each thing does, rather than just that little tiny blurb. I'll also show you as well, if you accidentally close either of these down, you've got to go up to view, because if you're having a problem and it's something to do with how things look, or the view of the user interface, go across to user interface over here, click on project browser, click on properties, and I believe properties can be toggled by going Control-1 for whatever that's worth. Okay, so let's start with the architecture ribbon. Walls are what they are. Click on the wall function, click once, click twice, there's your wall. If you click the drop down box here, you've got wall architectural, wall structural, and in place wall. Architectural is pretty much the only type of wall that I generally put in. I'm not hardcore into the BIM side of things. So if you're working for a place that is, you've got like structural engineers working on the same file as architects, then yeah, you'll probably get chewed out for doing the wrong kind of wall. But generally speaking, just the standard wall should get you there. Additionally, there's wall sweeps and wall reveals. So a sweep is like a positive. If you think about it in positive, negative, so a sweep is like an extrusion, which kind of runs around, horizontally or vertically along the wall, and a reveal is like a negative, so it's a cut out of the wall. I don't know if there's any loaded in to this project, so let's have a look. So cornice seems to be the only one loaded in. See how up here you've got horizontal and you've got vertical. So if we go horizontal here, click and press escape, there is your cornice, looking awesome. Additionally, we can go a reveal, and that's going to cut a hole in the wall, as you can see, or kind of see there. Okay, back to the floor plan. Doors, there's really not too much to tell you about doors. Change the type by, clicking on the I guess that's called the type selector. Yeah, that's it. There's really not too much to doors. Same deal with windows. If you're ever needing to load a door or a window in, like, that there's one on the server somewhere, or you've downloaded one, you can either click load family, or you can click and drag that door or window directly into the job, and that should load it in as well. That's the same deal for components in general. Speaking of which, components, same deal. You can load them in from somewhere on your server or wherever your downloads are. change whatever component you need to put in by clicking the, I guess I call it the type selector. I don't think it really has an official name. It doesn't matter too much. This is just where you click. A good idea to find something quickly, because there's not many components in here, but a fully fleshed out, professional office component library will have hundreds of things in here. So you can search up here. So let's search van, and it's going to toggle it'll find the van. That's very useful when putting in doors and windows. So if you've got like 500 window sizes and you need to put a 1218 window in, you can just type window up here, 1218. It's not going to be in here because everyone does their own naming system. But yeah, rather than click here and scroll forever trying to find something, always type it in up there. That's by far the quickest way to go about it. Okay, so columns will cover any kind of vertical like load-bearing / support-giving form of structure. So anything like a brick pier, a timber post, a steel column, or a concrete pillar, whatever, they're all going to come under structural. All going to come under columns. So you get structural columns and architectural columns. Off the top of my head, structural columns, they're going to join better with other structural elements. Like it says there, structural columns can join structural elements such as beams, braces, and isolated foundations. And I think architectural columns don't have that same level of joinability. Okay, roofs. There is a couple of different ways to draw a roof. You can draw a roof by a footprint, or you can draw a roof by an extrusion. 99 out of 100 roofs I've ever drawn have been by footprint, but it's good to know how to do it by extrusion as well. So I'll cover roofs in their own video because they are not as easy as you'd think, especially when it comes down to drawing them how they're actually going to be built, rather than just drawing them how you think that they should look. There's a lot of nuance and construction knowledge behind roof structure, and I'll try my best to kind of simplify it a little bit, or just give you some basic rules of thumb to work with. But yeah, roof by footprint is your most common go-to. Roof by extrusion, also good to know. Additionally, under roof, you have fascia, soffit, and gutter, so 3 common roof elements which have been placed under the same button. Ceilings are pretty self-explanatory. Click the ceiling button. You can either go an automatic ceiling, which is going to, if you can see the faint kind of orangey outline here, it's going to go through that entire space, or this space, or this space. It's defined or bound by walls. Or you can go sketch ceiling, and you can draw whatever shape ceiling that you want. Also, you need to pay attention to the level and the height offset from the level. So this is going to be going on the finished floor level, but it's 8 feet above finished floor level. Or generally, you're going to have a ceiling level which you could attach it to directly. Okay, floors. Same deal as columns. There's architectural and structural floors. Generally, I will generally just put in an architectural floor. I don't think I've ever had to put in a structural floor. For the purpose of BIM modeling, if you're working with engineers in the same Revit file, you're probably going to need to pay more attention to this. But generally speaking, if you're just a student or a first year, draftsperson trying to draw a basic floor plan, go your architectural floor. Also slab edges, great tool. If you're doing anything, you should really just draw them just as a general rule of practice, but especially if the section's going through that wall, it's going to be good to put that slab edge in there. These 2 buttons are closely linked, so a curtain grid is what the mullions will attach to, and the mullions are what you can actually see. These are to do with the storefront type of wall. So if we're going to go a wall, these things are to do with curtain walls. So if you're drawing a curtain wall and you want to modify, change, do anything with the actual mullions themselves, you're going to be having to work out what to do with these curtain grid and mullion buttons. They will get their own video because they're complicated. So railings are just your standard balustrading. It's, click, 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 easy peasy. There's a bunch of different types. I think there's only 2 in this job, but generally you'll have a lot of different patterns with different balusters and top rails and bottom rails, and you'll have colonial, or you'll have a 6-foot high fence which goes around the property, they're all going to be railings, but quite easy to use. Difficult to modify once you get into like the baluster placement and rail structure and all of that, but yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so ramps are kind of a mix between stairs and floors. With the ramps, you can actually give them a maximum like gradient. So you can say that this one's only going to go for 1200 and it's going to be at 1 in 40, or whatever the requirements for that ramp are. If you're actually going to put some ramps in jobs, it's much better to put ramps in rather than just floors, because they are built with a purpose. With floors, you'd just be modifying them to suit your purpose, really. So stairs can be tricky. You've got to get stairs set up perfectly before you actually draw them, because if you draw it and then realize that you didn't have the right levels put in, you have to pretty much just delete it and start again, because it's such a pain to try and modify them. So anytime you click that stair button, I want you to immediately go to base level and top level and make sure that it's going from one level to the level that you need it to, because if you just assume that that's right and then draw it and then try and modify it later, bad time. Get this done as soon as possible. Okay, model text it's pretty much just 3D text. There's nothing much to it, really. Model line, same deal. Anything that is model is going to be a 3D element, whereas detail is going to be, like a detail line is only going to show up in this view, or a detail component is only going to show up in this view. An actual model, or model line, model text, that's going to show up everywhere. So if you hear or see model, know that that's going to be in every view that it's possibly visible in. Yeah, so model groups, it's just a kind of group, really. If you've got a few walls and a toilet and like that diagram says there, exactly. If you have a common configuration, feel free to just make a model group out of it and place it as needed. Groups themselves are a complicated but very, very powerful part of Revit, and I'll make a video in itself just about groups and what you can do with them. Yeah, so the room tool, it really just does what it says. You can tag rooms. Rooms can give you a bunch of information. They can tell you what like the area is. It's a bit of a conceptual thing. It just kind of fills in the space between model elements. So if you've got a box which is surrounded by walls and a ceiling and a floor, it's going to identify the the volume of that space, and it's going to know that that's a room. So it will fill that what was empty space with a room, and then you can tag it. You can do whatever you want with it. A room separator is like an invisible line that you can draw in. Well, it should be invisible because you don't really want to see them, and it just separates the rooms, despite the fact that there's no physical element actually splitting those rooms up, as the diagram suggests. Tag room is just the same deal. Areas, once again, are going to get their own video because there's a lot to areas. The area plan is just where you create a new plan which you can then draw area boundaries on and tag, or I guess you tag, you kind of place an area within the boundaries. It's not like a room. A room is going to identify that there's 4 walls here, and then obviously we want to fill that space with a room. An area tag is only bound by area boundaries, and you can only do that in an area plan. Okay, there's a bunch of opening tools here. So by face means it's going to, as the diagram suggests, cut through at the plane of the face. Shaft is going to cut through multiple levels or layers. It's essentially a big old void that you can manipulate in any way you want. A wall opening is it's a pretty trash tool. I really don't like using it unless I absolutely have to, which is very, very rarely. But as that little video suggests, it can cut an opening in a wall, to everyone's great shock. Vertical opening. This is probably one of the most common opening tools that I use because it's great for cutting holes in roofs where you need to, you've got like a change in pitching height between 2 parts of the same roof, and you have to cut a hole to get the the gutter to tuck in underneath. So it's a very handy tool. I'll tell you all about that when I get to the roof video. And dormer, yeah, this is, as it suggests, it's kind of like a multi-dimensional opening tool. Like it says, both vertical and horizontal cuts are made in the roof. So datum here, level is, so if we were to go to an elevation, that button's going to light up, but it's not going to happen in the floor plan because you can't just put a level, because this floor plan is already attached to a level. More on that when I get to how levels and plans work and hold hands. Grids are useful. There's really not too much to say in this kind of quick. Well, this is meant to be quick, but I think it's going to end up going for a while because, like I said, there is a lot. But yeah, grids, some builders will insist you put grid lines on their jobs. Some architectural offices will. We only do it for like one of our clients at work. The rest don't do grids at all. So good to know when needed. And I won't beat around the bush with the work plane tools. I don't use any of these too much. I certainly will attach things to work planes, but I don't do much in the way of needing to show or reset or view a work plane. It's just not part of my workflow, so I'm not going to go into it too much. Okay, so that is a deep dive in just the architecture ribbon up the top here. We've still got structure, insert, annotate, site, view, manage, and modify to go. So bear with me. I have a 6-month-old and I work full time, so I'll get these done as soon as I can. But yeah, bear with me. Thank you all for your patience. I hope you got something out of this, and I'll talk to you all soon.